Hi, I'm Eric Stark, joined by Ed Groover, who's the LO League beat writer for Lancaster newspapers for high school football. So we're going to sort of get the press box perspective from Ed. He has a feature that comes out every Friday with the matchups. We're going to look back first, Ed, on surprises from last week. What games stand out to you?
The four games, Eric, that stood out, and not so much as to who won, but the reasons or the way that they won. Manheim Central, 52-19 over Hempfield. Surprising that game wasn't closer. I talked with Mike Williams after the game and his players, and they all expected, a really close game somewhere along the 17-14. That was the result last year at Hempfield, which Hempfield won.
Were you at that game?
I was at that game as well.
What stood out to you? Why do you think it was that lopsided? Was there anything in particular?
Yeah, I think Central kind of wore them down a little bit. It didn't seem after a while like Hempfield, could really match up that well along the front line with Central. The Barons scored on 5 straight possessions, and they were just ripping off huge gains. Mark Royer, Ian Hanselman, Colin Fry, the big three of Central's offense, the skill position kids, just had huge weeks last week.
Is that closer to the Manheim Central team that you guys expected? Kevin Freeman, Mike Rose, yourself, Keith Schwaggart all said this could be a good year for Manheim Central. Maybe the Manheim Magic is back. Week 1 against Warwick, I wasn't hearing that and seeing that from what I saw from Manheim, what you guys brought back from that game. This seems to be beat what looks like a good Hempfield team, the way they beat them. Does this maybe bode well for what we're seeing from Central for a good long run? Is this a good team?
Yeah, it's a very good team. I think it's the best Central team I've seen since 2009.
There we go.
When they went to the state final and lost on a late touchdown to in that state championship game. But this is clearly, I think, the best Central team since 2009.
Okay. You had McCaskey, Calico. What are some other games that stand out to you from last week?
Again, Calico beating Reading. Not a surprise that they won, but a surprise in the way they won, 44-6. Governor Mifflin shutting out Lancaster Catholic.
That was a big surprise.
Yeah, it was a big surprise. I thought that was kind of a toss-up game, but Catholic now has scored 6 points combined over their first two games, which is really surprising. And McCaskey York, I thought that was another toss-up game. York wins it 28-7.
Not even close. Catholic 0-2 in the year. Nobody saw that coming, right?
Right. No, not at all. And now, they're looking at 0-3 probably because they have to go out to Altoona and play a pretty good Erie McDowell team.
Wow. It's a snowball in effect right now. Any other games? Let's go the other direction here. Well, first of all, I got to bring this one up. I just saw the clip of this. It's picking a lot of news on Lancaster Online right now. Anvil-Kelowna Hamburg game. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened up there in Anvil with a fight?
Yeah, I'm not sure anyone really knows what happened. The Hamburg player, for whatever reason, just seemed to snap. There was a scuffle. Terry Lehman, the Anvil-Kelowna coach, said that the play, probably went on a little too long, that the whistle should have been blown sooner. But again, that's no reason for the Hamburg player to do what he did. Taking the helmet off of one of the Anvil-Kelowna players and hitting him twice, around the head area. Second time right in the head.
Right in the head.
Right.
What's going on there? Is there any suspensions, legal actions? Where do we stand with this?
Well, from what I understand, they were both suspended, I believe, for the rest of that game, the two players involved in the fight. As far as the rest of this situation goes, I believe there are charges pending, anything from a misdemeanor to a felony.
Wow. Ongoing here. So watch Lancaster Online for more coverage of that. I got to ask you about any surprises you saw as far as impressive outcomes from last week. As we look back, one more question from last week before we look ahead.
I thought there were 4 quality wins for several of LL teams. Garden Spot beating Ephrata, a good solid win for Garden Spot. They're 2-0 on the season now. Township beating Red Lion by 3 scores. Pequea Valley beating Kutztown, and Columbia edging Northeastern. I thought they were all quality wins for those programs.
I got a couple of things off of what you just said. Pequea Valley, 2-0. It's like Catholic 0-2, can't see it. Pequea Valley 2-0.
Right.
Also, Manheim Township beats a good Red Lion team, from what I've heard in the preseason. And I was at the Garden Spot Effort again. We always look for something to do on our Friday night. if people saw the Eagles game on Monday night, how they spread it out. Garden Spot spreads it out. Unless they're two wide outs, just take the open space and run. And if they catch the ball, it's like a 10-yard slant. They're off. They're fun to watch. Section 3, they should do very well. Let's put it that way.
They're 1 week away from what will probably be the Section 3 championship game when they go to Donegal for that game.
Should be a good matchup. Let's talk about the play. I talked about the impressive wide receivers. I think you have a couple of those guys there. Who were some of your players of the week from last week?
A lot of the same players from week 1. These names are going to be becoming familiar as we move along.
They start becoming like the stars.
Yep. For Mannheim Central, 3 of the players I mentioned before, Royer, Hanselman, and Colin Fry. Charlie Bell for Penn Manor, another big week, 3 touchdowns.
Wow.
Mitch Martin, we just talked about Garden Spot, 3 touchdown passes last week. For Cocalico, Spencer Moser, Jet Janis, both counted for 3 touchdowns in their big win over Reading. And a couple of new players. David Weaver of Warwick had 2 touchdowns, and Arthur Quay of Elizabethtown had 2 touchdowns. So good weeks for those players.
Let's look ahead. Friday, you come out with your 3 games to watch, and then some other games as well. Who will you be featuring Friday in the newspaper?
I think the best game of the week is Dallastown Penn Manor. Both 2-0. It's the only game involving the LL team where both teams are undefeated so far. Cocalico at Mifflin, I think that's a very good game. And then a couple of other games, Garden Spot at Conestoga Valley and Donegal hosting Palmyra. That's kind of setting up that, week 1 of the LL schedule, the Section 3 showdown between what looks to be the 2 best teams in Section 3.
Interesting. I've got to bring up the CV Garden Spot game. I think that's going to be a real mismatch because CV didn't do very well week 1 when they had a good quarterback going against them with Cedar Cleft. So it'll be interesting to see how they defend that. And the first matchup you mentioned on there, Dallastown?
Dallastown, Penn Manor. That looks to be a real good game.
Penn Manor had all those injuries in the beginning of the preseason with Central, and it seems like they found ways next man up to overcome
Yes.
that.
I spoke with Todd Mealy on the phone last week, and he said that the players, that have been asked to step up have done exactly that. And, from the looks of things, it's tough losing quality players like they have, but they really haven't missed a beat so far.
That's great.